Hello and welcome to the Power Your Advice podcast. The Power Your Advice podcast is designed to bring financial advisors new ideas, why those ideas should be considered, and how to implement them into your business. This podcast is brought to you by Advisorpedia, the best place for advisors to grow their minds and businesses. And now, please join your host, Doug Heikkinen.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. We are live at the T3 conference in Denton, Texas, and we're with Gerry Murphy, who's the CEO of Arcus Partners. Thanks for joining us, Gerry.
A pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself in Arcus Partners.
Well, Doug, I started out in the financial services business about 38 years ago. Might be 39 now. But I joined Arcus Partners about 3.5 years ago after our COO, Paul Stringer, founded the company. Paul and I had worked together for a long time at a fintech, SunGuard, and he left to try and solve some of the omnipresent problems that are prevalent throughout all of financial services: managing data, workflows, paper-based systems that still exist, and legacy technology, frankly, that is difficult to change. It does a lot of great things, but it's difficult to change. So I've spent the last 38 years working for some of the big fintechs, as has Paul, and we decided it was time to make a change and start to try and solve things with the newer technologies that are available out there and the toolkits that are just amazing in their functionality.
Could you get a little more specific on the types of problems that advisory firms have and what you're seeing out there?
Sure. I think in general, advisory firms struggle with many of the, I'll call them age-old processy problems that have existed for a long time. And I've had a chance in my years in the business to watch us go from an entirely paper-based processing system, if you will, to now things being digital. But unfortunately, I read a stat recently that said 95% of the processes that still happen in financial services are paper-based, even with all the digital media that's out there and all the systems that are out there that claim to be digital. So we jumped into business to solve that using technology built on a platform as a service, so that we could deliver things really quickly. We could fill needs quickly, and clients wouldn't have to wait for weeks or months or even years in a lot of cases for technology to change. We really wanted to deliver to financial services the experience that consumers have in the rest of their lives with their smartphone. You know, they want something, they want functionality. They go on to the App Exchange and they download something, and they can use it right away. Well, that really doesn't exist in financial services, but it's out there, and so that's what we decided to do. We started this company to really develop things that businesses could use to solve the processing problems that they have that have been around for a long time.
Isn't it just amazing? We're at a fintech conference and we're talking about all the paper that's still being used around the industry.
It is amazing. And I have to say that digital has been talked about. Digital transformation has been talked about now for a lot of years. And people have it on their to-do list. But I think that, unfortunately, I think COVID put digital transformation to the top of a lot of firms' list of things to get done sooner than later, because they realized how hard it was to do business with paper-based processes and workflows for their internal systems, that it had to change. And so it's a benefit for companies like us, because we've seen a huge uptick in interest in what we're doing, and a huge uptick in bringing clients on board.
So getting rid of all the paper, how does Arcus think about that and deal with the problems advisors have?
So we've focused on, people talk about growth through this, growth through that, growth through business transformation. Well, we focused on growth through client experience and advisor experience. And in our opinion, that's where it all starts, right? Again, back to the consumer world, when you do business on your iPhone in the app world, you expect things to all work the same, quickly, efficiently. I can do it right now. I don't have to wait for my answer. And that, again, as I said earlier, is still not prevalent in financial services. And so we started out with, what's the platform that we can develop on that's going to allow us to deliver better client and advisor experiences? And that's what we started to do. And we built a data-driven series of apps that we call Finity 360. It's an entire suite. It's an entire middle office for wealth advisors.
How do these apps and what you've built I mean, they obviously make the customer client experience much, much better, but how?
So we built apps on a platform as a service that allow an advisor or a client from the very first introduction to digitize that whole process through to compliance checks, internal workflows that have to be signed off on, and into the maintenance and service of a client account once they're on board. So we've built a series of apps that you don't have to have them all at once. You can do it. It's an a la carte type of thing, and you can pick them up as you go. Most of our clients start with data and document management, which is really the basis for everything. It's all task driven. It's all workflow driven, and then they go from there.
When you talk to advisors about what you're doing, are they excited about it? Are they nervous? Do they get it? Do they want to evolve into the future?
Well, I think we're at a point where there's still a lot of advisors who don't mind doing things the old way, paper. They want to meet with the client. They want to sit down with them. They want to build that trust that way. As things change in our industry, there are more and more advisors who are comfortable with technology, and they're very comfortable using it in their day-to-day processes. And so we find ourselves in the middle where we have to be able to service both. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about those processes and how some people still use paper, some people don't. But there's a lot of advisors who want to adopt technology. And if they do, then the training component of this becomes much simpler for them. You still find that technology in general is a training thing. Mm-hmm. The adoption of technology in most firms is about how much do people interact with it, how much do they want to interact with it? Because if advisors don't, they won't adopt it. But if they do, then they will. Being forced to it. There's a lot of advisors who would say, "Well, I'm better off on the phone with my clients talking about how to manage their wealth, as opposed to spending my time filling out fields on a database."
Right. There's also the education of the end investor, because there's a lot of older clients that want paper, want to sign paper, want to see their advisor to do all those things too. So it's continuing education.
It really is, and that's become a big part of it. So one of the things that we do with almost every adoption of our software is we work with people on training and how to best train people so that you get the best chance of adoption. In fact, we just did a press release. Peak Brokerage Services in Florida adopted our software about 8 months ago, and they finally rolled it out. They've adopted most of the components of our suite, and they developed a training program right alongside that, which I think has really made a huge difference.
Salesforce is a big part of your offering. So why did you decide to build your app on Salesforce?
So we were looking for a platform that would allow us to deliver software quickly. As I mentioned earlier, in our opinion, experience is what drives growth, and client experience and advisor experience is what drives them to use software today, applications. And so we started out on AWS. We architected a data warehouse on it, and we front-ended it with Salesforce. And when we found out the power of Salesforce, we started writing more and more apps on Salesforce. It's an unbelievably powerful platform that if you have the industry expertise, you can develop just about anything.
That's amazing. So tell me more about the Finity 360 apps. Are there certain ones that are getting more traction?
So right now, and again, I think due in part because of COVID, where people were forced to a digital path, our Finity 360 forms is really, really getting a lot of traction and interest. So we've implemented 4 new clients in the last 3 months on it. And essentially, it's a natural language forms process. So conversationally styled sentences fill out the forms in the background. So again, it's about the experience. When you come on board, you want it simple, you want it easy to use, and you want it to be end-to-end. And that's what we do, being able to do that on Salesforce and the platform as a service like that.
How do platforms as a service compare to traditional legacy technology?
Well, the biggest difference is that legacy technology requires companies to have expertise in various types of technology and technology stacks, and it requires them to have those stacks in a data room somewhere. Some people run in a cloud, but they're still employing the expertise to run those big technology stacks. You don't have that with Salesforce and other platforms as a service. So it's a lot cheaper, it's a lot faster to deliver things, and in our opinion, it's the way of the future.
Give me some real world use cases on how firms are using your software.
So as I said earlier, right now our forms product and our document management, so we install our document management first and foremost, and again, it's all task-based, which a lot of systems aren't, and allows us to set up a foldering system that puts all the workflow and compliance procedures in place. And from there, we go to digitizing our forms and digitizing our clients' forms so that they have those ready to go. And so from the time they start doing business with somebody through to maintaining that into years down the road, everything is digital. Everything is a great client experience. It's simple to use, and it's easy to install. And it's unbelievably cost effective.
How's the conference been?
The conference has been great. We have been at several, and of course, like everybody else, the last 2 years is the conference world's been void. But we're happy to be back here, and we're really excited about what's happening here.
It seems like everybody's happy to be back. There's lots of smiles, lots of activity.
There are
people attending sessions. It's great.
It's the interaction with people again that was missing for the last couple of years.
Yeah, Gerry, thanks so much for joining us today.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
How can people learn more?
They can go to www.finity360.com, and that is our suite of applications, or they can go to arcuspartners.com and read all about our business.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
For everybody at Advisorpedia, our producer, Jakey Beard, this is Doug Heikkinen.